Welcome back, brothers, to a topic that everyone has wondered about at some point, though few dare to ask directly. How do you know when a woman wants to be close, right now? Not the rushed kind of Netflix and chill, but real closeness, built on emotion, comfort, and trust. And no, you don't need psychic powers. You just need to observe, regulate your emotions, and avoid over-interpreting. Just as the Stoic philosophers taught, not every brush of the shoulder is an invitation. Sometimes the cafe is just too crowded. So today, we'll go through 15 subtle yet clear signs that she's opening up and wants to be closer to you. Sign number 1. Less distance, quieter space. Imagine you're at a party in Los Angeles. Soft amber lights fill the space. Jazz music flows gently between the clinking of wine glasses and murmured conversations. You're chatting with her. Nothing intense, just small talk, until you notice she slowly steps closer. Not rushing, not pressing up against you, but just enough that you can smell the faint, mysterious scent from her wrist. A scent so delicate, it makes you want to ask what it is, but you hesitate, not wanting to seem too attentive. In that moment, many men would immediately start imagining a next step scenario. But you must pause, because this isn't a clear invitation like in the movies. In body language, or more precisely in non-verbal psychology, closing physical distance is often a sign of safety and trust. It doesn't automatically signal desire or readiness for anything physical. Sometimes she just wants to hear you better. Sometimes she simply feels comfortable in your presence, and that's all. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "We are not disturbed by events, but by our interpretation of them." And that couldn't be truer than in moments like this. When she steps closer, you don't need to react with instinct or imagination. Just observe. Stay calm. And if you feel like responding, make it subtle. Shift a little closer. Hold her gaze warmly, but don't lean in like you're trying to claim something. The space between two people can hold more than words ever could. And if you're attentive enough, you'll sense that her stepping closer is an unspoken whisper. "I feel okay standing near you." The key is not to rush into turning that moment into a story in your head. Less distance isn't a free pass. It's a quiet hint that you're being trusted a bit more. And only those who can stay composed, who know when to take a step back, are strong enough to eventually step into something deeper. Sign number 2, a light touch that isn't light at all. At a small art workshop in Seattle, you're sitting next to a girl carefully blending watercolors on paper. The atmosphere is quiet and gentle. You drop in a joke here and there to break the silence. And each time she touches you, a light pat on your arm, a playful nudge at your elbow, or a mock love tap when you say something silly. At first you think maybe she's just being friendly. It's the US. People touch each other as part of social interaction. But then you start noticing a pattern. She doesn't do it to anyone else. And her touch isn't just a casual reflex. It has intention, rhythm, and it's directed at you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The actions of others are theirs. Our reactions are ours." A man living by that spirit doesn't let himself get carried away too soon, but neither does he pretend not to notice anything. You don't need to jump to conclusions that she's flirting. But you also shouldn't dismiss the possibility that she's trying to create a more intimate connection, crossing the line of mere social interaction. Because in truth, light touches, when paired with lingering eye contact and a soft smile, often carry emotional undertones that words cannot express. What matters is how you respond. Don't rush to touch back like some schoolboy who just learned what a crush is. Smile gently, hold her gaze, and notice the repetition. If she keeps touching you in different situations, in a natural, unforced way, that's a strong sign that a connection is slowly blooming. But if you react too quickly, too strongly, you might destroy something that's trying to grow slowly and quietly. Often, a gentle touch is not meant to seduce. It's meant to see if you're sensitive enough to understand the hidden message. You don't need to act fast. Just stay in the moment, calm, grounded, and present. Because sometimes, calmness is the very thing that makes someone feel safe. And it is from that sense of safety that all true relationships begin. Sign number 3, a gaze that lingers, is an unspoken invitation. You're sitting in a cafe in Brooklyn, not the cold hipster kind with flickering neon signs, but a peaceful corner filled with soft jazz, warm amber lighting, and conversations with depth. You're telling her about the time you almost quit your job at a startup to become a public school teacher, a decision not many understood, but one that made you feel most alive. In the middle of your story, you suddenly realize she's looking at you. Not a distracted glance, not the polite eye contact common in casual dates, but a gaze that lingers, just a heartbeat longer, as if she's slowly scanning each thought behind your words, as if she wants to see the part of you that you haven't quite put into words yet. A soft blink. No rush, no attempt to hide her focus. Seneca once said, "Silence also has a voice. Those who know how to listen will hear the truest things." And in that moment, her gaze is silence speaking. But here's the problem. Men often don't know what to do with that look. Some hold it too long, staring like they're trying to hypnotize, making the air tense like a job interview. Others look away awkwardly, cutting the thread of connection just being formed. You don't need to do anything dramatic. Just hold that gaze, but soft, gentle, not with a tightened face as if analyzing. Smile, not out of politeness, but because you feel something unfolding between you two. And if you want, you can gently break the silence with a half-joking, half-vulnerable line. That look feels like you're thinking something deep. Should I be worried? Charming enough, subtle enough to let her know you're present with both mind and heart. In America, eye contact is a common way of expressing emotion, but it can also be easily misunderstood. Not every look is an invitation. Sometimes people are simply moved by a genuine story. But if that gaze lingers, unflinching, calm, unembarrassed, it's more than just attention. It's an invitation without words. And if you're calm enough to stay in that moment, without rushing to interpret, you've just stepped into the realm of true emotion, the place where all deep connections begin. Sign number 4, a compliment that's more than words, it's intentional attention. You're standing in line at a food truck in Austin, Texas. The heat is scorching, and you're wearing a white mid-sleeve shirt, the kind you chose for comfort, not because you felt particularly confident. You're wondering if you look okay, when suddenly, the girl behind you tilts her head, squints playfully, and says something that makes you freeze. "That shirt looks really good on you." You chuckle softly, replying vaguely, "Oh, thanks." But in your head, your thoughts start running like Google Translate. Wait, what does that mean? Is she flirting? Or is this just polite American behavior? To someone who lives with a stoic mindset, reactions are never rushed. You don't need to get excited, nor do you need to be suspicious. You only need to recognize one simple truth. Compliments are never random. People don't compliment strangers on their appearance without some level of attention, even if it's unconscious. A compliment about clothing, style, or aura is a kind of selective filtering. And if you're in that field of attention, even slightly, you've just been mentally categorized as someone worth noticing. Still, not every compliment carries deep meaning. If her eyes light up, her tone is soft, and there's a hint of playful hesitation, then yes, she might be gently flirting. But if the compliment lands in a flat voice, no eye contact, no accompanying gestures, and she then turns to compliment the next guy, congrats. You've just received a standard American social nicety. What matters isn't the compliment, it's how you respond. If you instantly volley back with something like, "You're cute too," and a half smile, you might make her think, another guy who can't hold his frame. But if you receive it calmly, like a man who doesn't need anyone to validate his worth, she'll notice. Maybe you just respond lightheartedly. Thanks, I guess I picked the right shirt today. And if the energy feels open, follow up with, how about you? Do you usually judge people by their outfits? You've just turned a compliment into a real conversation. Because sometimes a compliment is the first step to intimacy. But only those who are subtle and composed can keep the rhythm, instead of drifting into fantasy. And that's where emotional self-control becomes the quiet but powerful weapon. Sign number 5. When she starts flirting with wordplay, stay sharp while playing along. You're attending a laid-back networking event in San Diego. The atmosphere is easygoing, good food around, scattered laughter filling the room, and no one's wearing that stiff, hello, I'm here to expand my professional connections face. You're standing next to a girl holding a mocktail, and after a few jokes back and forth, she tilts her head, eyes sparkling, and drops a line that's half teasing, half provocative. If you make one more joke, I'm going to block you for real. That line comes with a playful look, a slight hair flip, and a smile just strong enough to make you pause. It's not a threat. It's flirtation and very intentional. Stoic philosophy doesn't teach you to reject joy or become stiff in the face of humor. It simply reminds you of one important thing. Don't let emotion cloud judgment. Flirting, especially in American settings, is not just throwing signals. It's a subtle way for a woman to assess you. Your confidence, your sensitivity, and your ability to keep your cool when given attention. If you react too quickly, tossing back a clumsy flirtation, or acting overly eager like a puppy being petted, you've already lost the game before it starts. On the other hand, if you stay composed and respond with something grounded and personal like, "So you're testing my patience now? Just a heads up, I charge by the minute." You're showing that you're aware of the game and you don't need to try hard to win it. What matters here isn't having the perfect comeback, but maintaining your presence in the middle of teasing. Flirtation, at its core, is a game of intellect, not just emotion. It gives her a chance to observe you. Can you joke without being ridiculous? Can you stay grounded without being baited by cute provocations? In America, where conversation is relaxed but people are quick to lock in the vibe, flirting is a kind of reaction test. If you respond well, you're invited a step further. If not, you become a funny story after the party. In other words, flirting isn't a roadmap to her heart, it's an emotional compass. And only those who stay alert can read the real direction. So yes, play, but play with clarity. Because sometimes the winner isn't the one who gets the girl, but the one who doesn't have to prove anything and still makes her want to keep playing. Sign number 6. When she talks about pain instead of just her favorite food. You're driving with her along the coastal road in Oregon. The trip wasn't planned, but everything seems quietly perfect. The ocean breeze brushing by, a soft song playing in the car, and just enough stillness to make the world outside disappear. You ask casually, not expecting anything deep, if you could live anywhere for the rest of your life, where would it be? She goes silent for a moment, and instead of saying something like, by the beach or somewhere peaceful, she begins to tell a story. Her answer doesn't revolve around a place, but around memories, a childhood full of brokenness, years of living with fear, and a feeling of never belonging in crowded places, because those places remind her of being abandoned. You didn't expect that, but you don't interrupt. You just listen, truly listen, and in that moment you realize this is no longer a casual conversation. When a woman shares with you things that are private, not to impress you, but the things that have once hurt her, it's not a story. It's an offering. She doesn't need you to be smart. She doesn't need you to give the right advice. She's simply, quietly asking, Do you have the maturity to hold her vulnerability? This is not the time to perform. You don't need wisdom. You don't need to act understanding. You don't need to heal her. You just need to be there, kindly, without judgment. You might say something as simple as, "Thank you for trusting me with that." Or, if you've been through something similar, you might gently say, "I felt that way too." No more. No pressure. In American society, where people often hide behind confidence and independence, opening up is an act of real courage. And when she does that with you, it means you are standing before the doorway of something real, not born from impulsive emotion, but from trust that's been tested by time. These kinds of conversations are not invitations to move forward. They are tests to see if you're the kind of man allowed to stay. And if you're not afraid of that fragility, then it's from that very place of fragility that a deep connection can begin to grow. Sign number 7. When she compliments your patience, not your shirt. You're standing in line at the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles in California, a place where time seems to stretch to an absurd degree. In front of you, an elderly woman is fiercely arguing with the clerk because she forgot to bring her vehicle registration. The atmosphere is tense and unpleasant, blanketing the whole room. But you're still standing there, arms folded, wearing a soft smile as if watching a scene from a play about everyday life. No judgment, no frustration. You're simply present in the chaos, calmly. And then a voice behind you says, "You're really patient. If I were you, I'd have lost it by now." That line is more than a comment. It's a deep observation. She's not complimenting your shirt or the way you styled your hair this morning. She's complimenting something invisible, your patience. Something that can't be decorated and can't be faked. In Stoic philosophy, a person is not judged by words or appearance, but by how they respond to adversity. Anyone can behave properly when things go smoothly. But it's only when everything goes wrong that true character is revealed. And when a woman notices that, that means you've just passed an invisible test. Character-based compliments are rare. They're not the usual social phrases tossed around in America, where people often say, "That's a nice shirt," or "cool shoes," out of habit. A compliment about your inner qualities comes from observation and empathy. If she says, "I like how you didn't interrupt when someone was talking seriously," then you should know you are being seen, not just as an image, but as a person. In that moment, don't be overly modest. Don't say something like, "Oh, I'm just average," because that's like refusing the connection that's being offered. Receive it with a gentle smile and an honest reply. "I try, but yeah, sometimes I want to scream too." That line isn't just a response. It opens a door for her to step into your inner world. You could tell a short story about a time when you used to get angry and the moment you learned how to stay calm. A small story, but real enough to create closeness. In American culture, where appearance is often emphasized, when a woman compliments your calmness or patience, it's something to value, because she has chosen to look deeper and see something not everyone can see. And if you're calm enough to stay in that moment, then chances are you've just stepped into a depth that no ordinary flirtation could ever reach. Sign number 8. When she lifts her coffee cup the same moment as you, and it's not a coincidence. You're sitting at an outdoor cafe in Denver. The air is soft and breezy, the wind drifting through as if composing a soundtrack for your conversation. The girl across from you is talking about old movies from the 1980s, a topic that's not particularly unique, yet somehow you find yourself more attentive than usual. You lift your latte to take a sip, and almost at the exact same moment she lifts her own coffee cup. No one scripted this, but it happens so naturally that you notice. You tilt your head slightly to the right as you listen to her, and then she tilts her head in the same direction. You begin to notice something. Every small gesture you make is being mirrored by her, not in an obvious way, but enough to make you feel like someone is truly present with you. not just through social interaction, but on a deeper, synchronized level. This mirroring isn't mimicry. It's a sign of subconscious connection, where two people begin to move in rhythm without needing words. Stoicism doesn't have a vocabulary for mirroring like modern psychology does, but the Stoics deeply understood that true resonance never comes from long declarations. It comes from presence, from being fully there and having the other person fully there too. Mirroring, when it happens naturally, is not a tactic. It's proof. Proof that this woman feels safe, open, and, whether consciously or not, is trying to step into your inner world through the language of your body. But don't jump to conclusions. Not everyone who lifts a cup with you is sending a signal. You need to look closer. Does she continue to match your rhythm throughout the conversation? Or was it just a random moment before she went back to checking her phone? To notice true mirroring, you don't need to test her with fake gestures. Just slow down. Speak a little more slowly. Shift your posture to something more relaxed, and see if she naturally shifts with you. If she does, you're witnessing a deep connection unfolding silently. At that point, you might smile and joke lightly, "You know, I think we're syncing software or something." And maybe she'll laugh, not just at the joke, but because she too has noticed what you just saw. In a world full of noise and disconnection, two people moving in sync, even through something as small as lifting a coffee cup, is no small thing. To someone living by the Stoic spirit, this is the moment when you don't need to do more. Just be fully present, calm and grounded. Because sometimes that reflection isn't admiration. It's a silent invitation to go deeper. Sign number 9. When she teases you, but doesn't want you to leave. You're at a small backyard party in Dallas where people are chatting and laughing under warm yellow lights strung along a wooden fence. The vibe is cozy, clinking glasses, the smell of grilled meat, and a story you're telling about the time you forgot to fill up your gas tank on the highway has just made a few people burst into laughter. Kikes. Among them is her. But the interesting part isn't the laughter. It's the way she raises her eyebrows, half joking, half serious, and says, "Wow, you're exactly the kind of guy I'd never hand over my car keys to." It sounds like a playful jab, but her eyes aren't cold. Her tone carries a hint of mischief, and most importantly, she doesn't walk away after teasing you. That's a form of subtle flirtation, banter, a style of communication where she doesn't hand you a shallow compliment, but offers you a teasing remark filled with affection. Not to make you feel small, but to see how you react when you're not being pampered. Your reaction tells her a lot. Can you laugh at yourself? Can you stay calm and playful, or do you get defensive, overreact, and reveal a fragile ego? Stoicism may not speak directly about banter, but it speaks very clearly about emotional self-mastery. To the Stoics, strength isn't about proving you're right. It's about not needing to win in order to feel worthy. In situations like this, what matters isn't how witty your comeback is, but whether you can smile without forcing it, accept the teasing without losing your center. You could respond with something light. "So you only like people who never make mistakes? I guess I'd better hide my entire past then." Or stay sincere. "Yeah, I was clumsy back then, but now it makes for a good story." No need to act tough, because real strength isn't in hiding flaws, but in owning them. In American culture, banter is an unofficial language of affection. It breaks the ice, eases nerves, and sometimes serves as a bridge to test whether someone can join a shared emotional journey. But it's also a subtle game. If you react too timidly, she might pull back her words and her openness. If you react too aggressively, you turn the game into a confrontation. But if you stay calm, light-hearted, and don't rush to take the upper hand, you're quietly saying, "I understand this game, and I don't need to dominate it to feel okay." So banter isn't just a string of jokes. It's her way of testing whether you can stay and still be yourself when lightly pushed. And if you pass that test, her teasing may be followed by a softer glance, a shorter distance, and a connection forming, not because you told a funny story, but because you knew how to play, with the right style, pace, and poise. Sign number 10. When she doesn't need a reason, but still chooses to stay close. It's lunchtime at a tech office in Seattle. You choose to sit alone in a quiet corner to read, away from the noise of the shared dining space. The space is quiet, the light just right, and the pages open up into your own little world. Suddenly, she shows up, a colleague from another department holding her lunch tray. She smiles and says, "Wow, this spot's really peaceful. Mind if I sit here for a bit?" You look up and nod, but inside you start wondering, why this spot when there are a dozen empty tables all around? In truth, you know the reason. She didn't come because it was convenient. She came because you were there. It's not a coincidence. It's an intentional move, a way to close the gap without having to say anything outright. She's opening a door and you can step in, if you're perceptive enough to notice. Not all women will say, "I like you" directly, but they'll leave clues through small acts, dropping by your desk a few times a day with vague reasons, inviting you to an activity that clearly doesn't require your involvement, or asking about a restaurant, then subtly suggesting trying it together. They don't say it, but they show up. A stoic man doesn't react impulsively. He observes, then analyzes. Not all actions are random. Sometimes what's genuine is hidden in gestures that seem accidental. And that's what you must understand. When she frequently appears near you without a clear reason, it's not because you're irresistibly attractive, but because she's testing whether you're sensitive enough to take the lead. If you ask awkwardly, "Why are you here?" you just broke the natural rhythm she's trying to maintain. Don't do that. Instead, receive her presence with a soft smile and a simple comment like, "I like this corner too. It's quiet. You've got good taste." Then, if her presence becomes a pattern, you can gently take initiative. "I'm heading out for a walk nearby. Want to join?" That's when you respond, not with words, but with action, soft but clear. If she agrees to go with you, you've just stepped into the emotional space she quietly opened for you. In American culture, women are taught to be independent, but that doesn't mean they lack subtlety. They won't speak like in a movie, but they will place you in scenarios that invite you to understand. Are you mature enough to read the signs? Are you bold enough to take gentle action? Because in the end, when a woman chooses to exist in your space without needing a reason, it's not an unconscious move. It's an unspoken invitation. And only men who are still, rational and perceptive will recognize that invitation before it's lost in silence. Sign number 11. When she shares an old memory, not to complain but to test your heart. The two of you are sitting in the car, parked in front of a Mexican restaurant in San Antonio. You were supposed to get out a few minutes ago, but a song playing on the radio makes time feel like it has paused. She sits beside you, lets out a quiet sigh, not quite sad, but enough for you to sense something deeper in her eyes. Then she says, "This song, I used to hear it a lot when my mum was still alive. Every time I hear it again, I miss her, but I never let myself cry." You say nothing. You don't try to comfort her. You don't interrupt with a clumsy question. You simply stay silent and let your presence speak on your behalf. And in that moment, you know, you're no longer just someone making small talk. You've been invited into a sacred space, a place not easily opened, and certainly not to someone who hasn't earned her trust. Epictetus once said, "Other people do not belong to us, but if they open up, it's a privilege, not a chance to control." When a woman shares her pain with you, about her late mother, a past heartbreak, or a hidden fear that she's not enough, she's placing part of her heart in your hands. Not to be healed, but to see if you're mature enough not to hurt it again. In this age, Especially in American culture, where strength and independence are highly valued, a woman opening up emotionally is not common. They're used to standing up on their own, getting through things alone, and carrying their emotions solo. So if someone chooses to tell you about their past, not for pity, not to impress, but simply because they want you to know who they really are, then you're no longer an outsider. You're someone chosen to witness. And here's what many men don't realize. Your response in that moment matters more than any clever words. You don't need to share a similar story or force out some display of empathy. Just an attentive gaze, a sincere nod, or a quiet sentence like, "I know that couldn't have been easy to say." That's enough. And if you truly want to respond, share something real from your own life. No need for tragedy, just honesty. Stoicism teaches us that we don't always need to react. Sometimes the kindest thing is silent presence without judgment, listening without pushing. And if you're not ready to step into that emotional space, that's okay too. But if so, withdraw gracefully. Don't make her regret opening up. Because for many women, telling a sad memory isn't weakness, it's courage. And you are the one chosen to witness that courage. Sign number 12. When distance is no longer physical, but a choice. A gentle afternoon at Lincoln Park, Chicago. You and she are sitting side by side on the grass, listening to an acoustic band perform in the open air. No movie theater darkness to hide in, no excuse for accidental touches, no other reason to be here except for two people being genuinely present together. You're telling a story from college, a little silly, a little naive, and before you even finish, she quietly places her hand on yours. No hesitation, no drama, no explanation, just stillness. In that moment you know, this is no longer a friendly gesture. This is a silent message. I don't feel the need to keep distance from you anymore. The space between you, once governed by caution and social courtesy, has suddenly softened, become intimate. Distance is no longer physical, it's a choice, and she just chose you. A person guided by Stoic philosophy wouldn't rush to interpret. They observe. They don't judge everything by appearances. Epictetus once reminded us, look at what's really being communicated behind every action. A touch, even a gentle one, crosses a personal boundary. And if it happens naturally, without force, without justification, it says a lot. It says, a wall has been lowered, not because you broke through it, but because she took it down herself. Still, there's a fine line between genuineness and illusion. A shoulder tap after a funny story may not mean much. But if she consistently sits closer than needed at crowded events, rests her head on your shoulder when tired, or maintains physical contact for no apparent reason, that's the unspoken voice of trust beginning to bloom. And here's where your composure matters. Don't grab that hand like a child who just found treasure, but don't ignore it like nothing happened either. Just stay calm. A soft smile or a quiet sentence like, "You really do have a calming effect," is enough. Not a grand reaction, but a silent confirmation you felt it. American culture values personal space. People don't touch if there's no reason. They don't lean on strangers' shoulders. So when a woman chooses to touch you and continues to act naturally afterward, behind that gesture lies deep emotional consideration. No alcohol, no background music, no seduction script. Just a feeling. I feel safe here. And this is when you must remember one important truth. True closeness doesn't come from stepping in. It comes from knowing when to step back, so the other person feels respected, seen, and understood. Let that touch lead you into emotional depth, not rush you into an illusion of possession. Because when a woman has let down her guard, the last thing she needs is someone crossing the line, without knowing how to hold what is sacred. Sign 13, when she doesn't invite the group, but invites just you. You're standing inside a small bookstore in Portland, holding an old, weathered classic novel, when she leans in gently and says, "There's a book fair downtown this weekend. Want to go together?" There's no group of friends behind the invite, no suggestion of a social gathering. Just one word, together, spoken with intent. This isn't random, it's a choice. In a noisy world full of surface-level interactions, an invitation like that carries its own weight. It doesn't come from impulse, but from a desire to get closer, to understand more deeply, to explore something together, not through screens, not through messages, but through real in-person presence. Stoic philosophy offers a subtle way of expressing this. True connection doesn't form in crowds, but in the moments when people choose to be beside each other without needing a grand reason. And that's exactly what's happening here. When a woman invites you somewhere, not because she needs company, but because she wants your presence, she's inviting you into her lived world. It could be a photo exhibition she's loved since college, a hiking trail where she runs every weekend, or simply the Vietnamese pho place she goes to when she misses her mom. These invitations are her way of seeing whether you live on the same frequency. Because emotions don't come from theories or analysis, they come from shared memories, from even the smallest shared experiences. That's why you shouldn't ruin the moment with a question like, "Oh, is anyone else coming?" Not only is it awkward, but it also unintentionally rejects the intimacy she's trying to offer. Instead, respond with gentle appreciation. "I'd love to, and I'm curious, what makes that place special to you?" That reply doesn't just accept the invitation, it opens the door for her to share more about the place, the memory, and herself. And when the two of you are actually there, at the book fair, the art session, or her favorite park, don't let your phone dull the moment. Don't be there only physically, be emotionally present. Because this is a small test. Can you really listen? Do you actually care about her world, beyond the usual small talk? In American culture, where time is a precious asset and everyone's busy, if she makes plans just to be near you, it's not a casual habit. It's a silent investment. You're not someone she's inviting for fun. You're gradually stepping into an emotional space, one not easily offered to others. So when she chooses you for something small that she loves, don't see it as a stepping stone to something bigger. And don't rush to ask, "What are we?" Just walk with her and let those shared steps, that wordless resonance, answer everything for you. Sign number 14. When she doesn't ask if you're free this weekend, but if you have plans next month. You're sitting on the grass in Central Park, the late afternoon sun bathing everything in gold. After a light picnic, you think the date is wrapping up, but then she suddenly turns to you and asks, "Next month, I'm thinking of going to Maine to see the fall foliage. If you're free, want to come with me?" Not, "Are you free this weekend?" Not, "Are you free tomorrow afternoon?" But, "Next month." A sentence that might sound casual, but if you pause for a beat, you'll realize she just invited you into her future and imagined you as part of it. For those who live by the Stoic mindset, nothing is just a small thing. Every word, every action holds a deeper layer of meaning. When a woman brings up next month's plans while the present is still uncertain, it's not a surface-level invitation. It's a quiet test. Can you picture yourself still being in my life by then? Not everyone gets invited on a road trip. No one casually mentions spending Christmas together in another city if they haven't already thought of you as a potential companion. In her world, you're no longer just someone she met. The real sign is in the intentionality. Some invites are vague, like, "Let's hang out sometime." We hear that every day. But when the invitation becomes concrete, "I'm thinking of going to Maine at the end of the month. Want to come?" You've been placed in a meaningful emotional position. She's not just inviting you to a trip. She's trying to imagine a life that includes you, even if just for a few days, in a place far from daily routine. And in that moment, you, the man being chosen, have two ways to respond. You could make a throwaway joke like, "If I go, will you even survive me?" and destroy the emotional space she just opened. Or you could answer with quiet sincerity, "I've never been to Maine, but going with you sounds worth considering." A soft line, but one that tells her you understand this isn't just a trip. It's an invitation into something deeper. American culture values independence, but when a woman brings you into her future plans, that's a gesture of commitment. Because planning is investing, and she's investing in you, not with poetic declarations of love, but by seeing you as someone she might walk a little further with. No one shares their time and space with someone they don't value. So if you find yourself in that invitation, don't take it lightly, because what she's building isn't a quick date, but the foundation for something more. And the final Stoic advice is, if you want to step into someone's future, step in with full presence. But if you're not ready, don't plant hope with a half smile. Because sometimes an invite to Maine is really her way of saying she's ready to go further with you, not just in geography, but in emotion. Sign number 15. When she doesn't just listen to what you say, but listens to understand who you are. You're sitting on the front steps of your porch after a long day. Nothing special, just an ordinary afternoon, a quiet moment in a city that never sleeps. She walks out from the kitchen holding 2 glasses of iced tea and sits down next to you. No noise, no effort to create a mood. You begin to talk. Not about big things or impressive career goals, just a few scattered thoughts about work, about feeling lost in a life that seems to be moving too fast, about the mornings you wake up wondering, where am I even going? You speak without expecting her to say anything, but then you notice she's not looking at her phone. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't jump in just to say something clever. She just sits there fully present. And when you stop, the silence isn't filled with a cliché or a new topic to break the quiet. Instead, she gently asks, "Do you think all of that is what's making you feel so lost?" No lecturing, no fixing. Just a question, timed just right and deep enough that makes you realize some people listen not to reply, but to understand. In that moment, you're no longer talking to a charming, attractive, or engaging woman. You're face to face with a real person, fully present, with a rare kind of attention and heart. And you feel grateful in a way no words could express. In a world where everyone rushes to speak in order to be heard, having someone choose silence to truly hear you is a gift. True listening isn't just a skill, it's a commitment to not judge, to not interrupt, to not treat you like a project that needs fixing, but to let you simply be yourself, at least in that moment. She doesn't just remember what you said, she remembers the feeling you carried with those words. She doesn't respond with advice, but with a gaze, with quiet empathy. And you know, this isn't polite performance, this is real connection. And then, you learn something too. Don't turn that moment into a dumping ground for endless burdens. Sincerity must always come with restraint. Pause and ask her in return, "What about you? Do you ever feel that way too?" Because real conversation isn't one person talking and the other nodding. It's two souls opening up, touching each other with truth. In a country like America, where everyone's busy, everyone wants to speak, deep listening is a revolutionary act. People can easily offer a compliment, a hug, a bouquet, but very few can stay and truly listen. If she does that for you, understand, she's not curious about your stories. She wants to understand the person behind them, beneath the roles, behind the masks. And if you're experiencing that, or any of the signs mentioned in this video, cherish it. Women don't always speak in words, but they always speak in emotion. And a mature man isn't the one who guesses those emotions, but the one who is calm, sensitive, and kind enough to hear them. Because in the end, real connection doesn't come from appearances or grand gestures. It comes from something simple yet priceless. Someone who is willing to stay and listen all the way through. Closing. Deep voice, slow, emotional. There are signs that don't need to be spoken. You only need to be sensitive enough to feel them and strong enough not to rush them. A gaze that lingers longer than usual. An invitation without a big reason. A light touch, but one that dissolves distance. Women don't fall in love with logic. They fall in love with the feeling of safety. And if she is slowly stepping into your space, through her presence, through her eyes, through the stories that aren't easy to tell, then you don't need to act fast. You only need to stay maturely. Because real connection doesn't come from speed. It comes from being present long enough for the other person to know they're safe to be fully themselves.